I found her curled up in a cardboard box behind the old warehouse, forgotten and gasping for life, a baby barely hours old, abandoned to die. No one else dared to touch that broken innocence, but I knew at once that I couldn't walk away. From that moment, the fragile thread of her survival was draped around my heart. My name is Mary Elizabeth Johnson, and I am 62 years old. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, but the memory of that winter day in 2002 when I found Lily Grace Miller is as vivid as if it happened yesterday. I was a schoolteacher then, leading a quiet life, never imagining that fate would thrust me into a role far beyond anything I'd ever dreamed. Mother, protector, and warrior for one tiny life that needed love more than anything else. The day began like any other, a brisk walk through Grant Park on a chilling December morning. The sun was barely peeking through thick clouds, and the hipsters and joggers who frequented the paths were scarce. The air smelled faintly of pine and damp earth, reminding me of childhood Christmases in the Carolinas. But then I heard it, the faint, desperate wail of a baby cutting through the winter stillness. At first I thought it was a stray animal or a distant car alarm, but the cries grew insistent, piercing my heart. Following the sound, my footsteps led me toward a narrow alley behind a boarded-up warehouse near Ponce City Market. My breath caught as I spotted the small cardboard box wedged between rusted dumpsters. I knelt carefully beside it, heart pounding. Inside, amidst a thin blanket stained and torn, lay a tiny, fragile newborn, eyes squeezed shut, shivering uncontrollably, skin pale and translucent. Instinct overtaking fear, I scooped her into my coat, immediately wrapping her against the cold. I dialed 911, hands trembling as the operator guided me through first aid until paramedics arrived. The hospital became her first refuge. Neonatal nurses took her trembling body into their care while I sat in the waiting room, overwhelmed by a mixture of hope, fear, and an unspoken vow that I would not let this child be forgotten. From those uncertain moments sprang a tumultuous journey, a path punctuated by uncertainties about her origins, the shadowy circumstances surrounding her abandonment, and the long, complicated task of offering her a life filled with love and dignity. In the days that followed, I struggled with fear and hope. Fear for her survival, and hope that somehow, despite the odds, she would thrive. Hospital staff remained cautiously optimistic, but the fragility of her condition kept me grounded in a realm of intense vigilance and prayer. I named her Lily Grace, after the tender resilience of a flower blooming against all odds, and the grace I prayed would sustain her. As Lily grew stronger, my resolve hardened. She became more than a foundling. She was a living, breathing testament to second chances, to love's power to rescue and redeem. Navigating the waters of foster care and legal guardianship introduced me to new battles. Bureaucracies that often seemed indifferent, questions about my ability to care for a child not my own, and the relentless uncertainty of whether I could shield her from past neglect's scars. School days woven with stories and laughter replaced the sterile hospital monitors. Lily's first steps, tentative and trembling, stretched into confident strides across our small home in Decatur, where walls had somehow made room for a family that had not been planned, but was fiercely embraced. Yet beneath the joy, uncertainty lurked. Who was her biological mother? Why had she left Lily so utterly alone? Were the shadows of her past destined to follow her no matter how much love I tried to surround her with? Late nights found me sifting through vague hospital records, police reports hinting at unresolved cases of infant abandonment, and whispered mentions by social workers reading between lines of legal jargon. Friends and family, initially wary, became invaluable pillars, as did Barbara Davis, my neighbor and confidant, who shared wisdom and steady friendship during the stormy nights. As Lily blossomed into an inquisitive toddler, each new smile, each new word, was a victory hard won against a past filled with silence and neglect. Looking back, that December morning was more than the day I found a baby. It was the day my life changed irrevocably. The promises made that bitter winter laid the foundation for a love that would brave every storm. This is the story of Lily and me, of survival beyond abandonment, of the fierce bond forged in adversity, and of how the truth, no matter how painful, eventually finds a voice loud enough to be heard. The journey that began with silent cries in a cardboard box was only the prologue to a tale of family, truth, and ultimately, justice. One that would echo years later in the solemn halls of a courtroom. Lily's first breath under my roof sparked a fierce sense of protection I hadn't known I possessed. With each passing day, as her frail frame grew stronger, the uncertainty of her origins gnawed quietly at the edges of my mind. The hospital had been just the beginning, the place where life was hooked tenuously to machines and hope. Yet after discharge, in the quiet moments of our first weeks at home in Decatur, I couldn't shake the feeling that fragments of her story, hidden beneath layers of silence, were waiting to be uncovered. I began gathering what little information I could. There were vague police reports filed that winter, whispers of an abandoned infant found in the city's neglected areas, and a social worker named Amanda Lee who had appeared briefly in Lily's medical chart. I reached out to Amanda cautiously, her tone professional but tinged with empathy. "Ms. Johnson, the records are incomplete, but we believe the baby's mother was a teenager in distress, a victim of circumstances that cut short hope and safety." The words confirmed my worst fears. Lily's arrival was likely the end of a much harder story, one I needed to understand if I was to protect her fully. School days approached rapidly. Lily's first steps were celebrated in our small living room, her laughter filling the spaces once empty. But behind the joy, I watched her closely, noticing moments of sudden silence, flashes of fear when loud voices rose or unfamiliar people came near. I knew those scars did not just vanish with love. They shadowed every new experience. With the help of Barbara Davis, my longtime neighbor and a retired counselor, I learned how to care for children who carried such shadows in their souls. Barbara's guidance was a lifeline, teaching me empathy, patience, and the importance of explaining safety and trust, even when the past whispered betrayal. In the background, life moved with gradual normalcy. I returned to my work as a school teacher, balancing lecture plans with late-night reading about trauma-informed care and child psychology. Yet beneath the surface, the past was never far. Hidden away in dusty drawers, I kept files and photos, a secret archive of Lily's beginnings, medical reports, and the sparse records I pieced together from social workers and hospital liaisons. Each document hinted at hardship, financial instability, absence of a father, and a mother's struggle with addiction and neglect. These were lives disrupted long before Lily's arrival in my arms. It was during one of these late nights that I stumbled upon an unmarked folder, forgotten hospital records containing a letter from a local foster agency. It suggested the possibility of relatives seeking contact, an uncertain lead that both terrified and intrigued me. One afternoon in 2007, 5 years after that cold Christmas in Grant Park, a man appeared at the door, a tall figure, hesitant, eyes etched with regret. He introduced himself as John Miller, claiming to be Lily's biological father. The intrusion threatened to unravel the fragile tapestry I had woven around our lives. Questions swirled. Was he truly her father? What were his intentions? Would he disrupt the love and security we had built? I listened with a cautious heart as John recounted his version. Years lost to addiction, mistakes, and absence, now seeking redemption. His story was imperfect, filled with contradictions and gaps. Meanwhile, Lily, then 5 years old, remained blissfully unaware of the turmoil her past unleashed. Her world was one I had labored to make safe, a sanctuary free from the neglect and abandonment that once nearly claimed her. The weight of John's arrival settled heavily on my conscience. How to protect Lily's right to know her origins while shielding her from further instability? How could I hold on to my role as a mother by choice and necessity when the shadow of biology threatened to cast doubt? The days that followed were fraught with tension. I sought counsel from Susan Taylor, a formidable attorney specializing in guardianship and child welfare. Her steady advisement shaped our approach to prioritize Lily's best interests, legal clarity, and emotional safety. Together, Susan and I charted a course of legal exploration, background checks, custody evaluations, and careful documentation of John's history. Our goal was not confrontation for its own sake, but clarity and protection. Throughout this period, I found strength in Lily's innocent trust. She called me Mom with a pure conviction that defended against my moments of doubt and fear. As John's presence became a shadow over the next months, I refused to allow our family's foundation to crumble. Despite his pleas and promises, the legal system required proof of stability and responsibility before any change could be considered. Conversations with social workers, therapists, and legal advisors underscored the complexity of disentangling biological ties from nurturing love. At times, the pressure was overwhelming. Doubts crept in. Had I overstepped? Would Lily's true family heal her better? Could a love built outside blood be enough? But with every question, the answer rooted deeper. Motherhood was not only biology, it was the daily sacrifices, the unwavering care, and the fierce protection that I chose. In the autumn of 2008, a court date was set, an arena where love and legality would collide, and where the truth of who was truly Lily's mother would be contested. As I prepared for the trial, assembling years of evidence, testimonies from neighbors like Barbara Davis, and medical and educational records, I realized that my fight was not merely for custody, but for honor and recognition. Lily's welfare, her identity, and her future were inseparable threads in this tapestry of love, sacrifice, and truth. The story was far from over. A deeper chapter lay ahead, where hearts would be tested and justice sought in voices both spoken and unspoken. The summer of 2011 brought an unexpected storm into our lives. A man named John Miller appearing at our doorstep, dragging with him years of secrets, regrets, and explosive revelations that threatened to upend everything I had painstakingly built with Lily. John was taller than I remembered from scattered hospital records, his face weathered by years of hardship and mistakes. His eyes held an urgent desperation masked behind the rough exterior, a man eager to reclaim lost time but uncertain if he was welcome to do so. The knock startled me during a quiet afternoon in July. I hesitated before opening the door, heart pounding. Standing there was the embodiment of Lily's unknown past. "I'm John Miller," he said simply. "I've come to meet my daughter." The weight of those words pressed down on me. John's appearance was not a matter I could control, but how I responded would shape the next chapter of our lives. The days that followed became a maelstrom of confrontation and uncertainty. He was insistent and persistent, wanting to know every detail about Lily, her growth, her habits, her dreams. But I knew that introducing someone claiming fatherhood was not just an emotional moment. It was a legal quagmire intertwined with Lily's stability. In the evenings, Lily would ask quietly, "Mom, who is that man?" Each time, my heart shattered a little, but I answered gently, "Someone from your past, sweetheart. We're figuring things out." At my insistence, John consented to background checks and reunions under careful supervision. Yet, the investigations revealed a troubled history, years marked by addiction, incarcerations, and absent years. Claims of fatherhood bore weight, but the foundation for parenting was shaky, fragile. John's presence unleashed dormant fears inside Lily. Nightmares returned, school performance dipped. The baby I had rescued was growing into a child uncertain of which roots to trust. Balancing these new realities became my all-consuming task. I sought the help of therapists, specializing in adoption reunification, trying to create a bridge between Lily's loving present and her biological past. Legal counsel advised that John's rights, though biologically valid, were not yet clear-cut in terms of custody or visitation. Susan Taylor, our formidable attorney, prepared diligently for any legal challenge, emphasizing the necessity to protect Lily's emotional well-being above all else. Simultaneously, I worked hard to maintain a sense of normalcy for Lily. Weekends filled with laughter, school projects, and simple joys were my refuge from the storm. The internal conflict was persistent. I wrestled with feelings of anxiety and guilt. Was I depriving Lily of her heritage, or protecting her from further pain? John's attempts at reconciliation were uneven, occasional promising visits shadowed by anger and broken promises. His resentment toward me was palpable, accusing me silently of stealing a role that was rightfully his. Family and friends became divided. Some sympathized with John's claim, others stood unwaveringly by my side. Barbara Davis, ever the voice of reason, reminded me, "Mary, true family is made in love and care, not just DNA or court rulings." When the inevitable court hearing was scheduled for late 2012, the air was thick with anticipation. Months of preparation culminated in a courtroom showdown where memories, testimonies, and legal arguments intertwined. The day of the hearing, Lily remained close to my side, clutching my hand as if drawing strength from my presence. Her wide eyes, innocent yet inquisitive, underscored the stakes at hand. Witnesses testified, teachers recounting Lily's progress and stability, neighbors describing the home she flourished in, social workers affirming the adequacy of care I provided. John's legal team presented his case with passion, but struggled to provide a living environment suitable for Lily's needs at that time. I delivered a heartfelt statement, weaving my story, from the cold December day I found her, to the years of nurturing and love invested in raising her. Emphasizing the emotional sanctuary I sought to protect was vital in swaying the court. The judge listened carefully, weighing facts, feelings, and the undeniable truth of our bond. Closing arguments framed by Susan underscored a simple, compelling truth. Parenting transcends biology. It is built on the daily acts of sacrifice, guidance, and unwavering commitment. By late afternoon, the courtroom held its breath as the verdict was read. The judge affirmed my custodial rights, highlighting the priority of Lily's well-being, continuity, and stability. John was granted supervised visitation, his role acknowledged but balanced by the need to shield Lily from instability. The ruling was a bittersweet victory. The legal battle ended, but the emotional journey continued. In the quiet that followed, Lily nestled into my arms, her smile reminding me that love, tested and proven, was what truly defined family. And though shadows of the past still whispered, we faced the future together, stronger, united, and whole. After the courtroom ruling, a fragile calm settled over our lives, a silence pregnant with both relief and the anticipation of inevitable challenges. Though custody was legally affirmed, the specter of John Miller's re-entrance into Lily's world beckoned more storms than peace. The victory belonged to the courts, but the real battle was only beginning, fought in the quiet trenches of family dynamics, legal strategy, and emotional resilience. The weeks after the verdict became a measured dance of preparation. Susan Taylor, my steadfast attorney, was instrumental in crafting a multidisciplinary strategy to protect Lily's best interests, balancing the legal framework with psychological support and community resources. "Mary, this is not just about custody enforcement anymore," she cautioned during one late-night phone call. "We need to prepare for potential petition challenges, ensure visitation terms are respected, and anticipate attempts to undermine your guardianship." The complexity of the legal landscape was daunting, but I felt bolstered by Susan's clarity and unflinching commitment. Parallel to these preparations, I immersed myself deeply in supporting Lily's emotional well-being. Therapy sessions with Dr. Helen Carter became a sanctuary, Lily's safe space to voice confusion, anger, and uncertainties tied to her dual connections. "I don't understand why he left," Lily once whispered during a particularly raw session. "Why did he go away for so long? Am I his or yours?" I held her hands gently, a knot tightening in my throat. "You are my daughter, Lily. Always. But your story is big and it has many parts. We will face them together." Those words became the cornerstone of our evolving narrative. Transparency tempered with love and stability. While Lily learned to navigate the complexity of her identity, I tackled the equally daunting task of reasserting control over the practical aspects of our lives. Maintaining a stable home and consistent schooling in Atlanta required coordination with school counselors, extended family, and neighbor Barbara Davis, who provided crucial emotional and logistic support. Barbara's insights were invaluable as she bridged gaps between family members, helped mediate tensions, and preserved a semblance of normalcy. In the legal arena, Susan and I gathered a formidable trove of documents. Medical records documenting Lily's developmental progress, testimonials from teachers detailing her consistent attendance and exemplary behavior, and affidavits from close friends and neighbors reinforced the narrative Susan crafted, that Lily's stability and love were rooted deeply in our household. At the same time, a quiet investigation into John Miller's recent history unfolded. Susan's private investigator uncovered patchy employment history, instances of previous child welfare complaints, and relapses in rehabilitation efforts. While these findings were damning, presenting them without appearing vindictive required surgical precision. To fortify Lily's emotional security, I initiated connections with local support groups for children from foster care and adoption. These groups offered Lily a network of peers who understood her unique challenges, easing feelings of isolation. Additionally, I began documenting every instance of John's interactions with Lily, carefully noting details that might be relevant to enforce court-mandated visitation terms. This attention to detail was exhausting but necessary. Throughout this period, John's visits were erratic, moments of tenderness interrupted by episodes of impatience and inconsistency. He struggled to reclaim his role, often stumbling in communication and behavior. One particular afternoon encapsulated this tension. John arrived late to a scheduled visit, visibly agitated. "Mary, I'm trying," he muttered to me, frustrated that Lily was hesitant to engage. Lily's small voice held a wariness that broke my heart. "Dad, it's hard for me. I don't always know what to say." This vulnerable exchange underscored the emotional stakes. Parenthood was far more than biology. It was building trust, day by fragile day. Meanwhile, family relationships flared unpredictably. John's relatives, having learned of his paternity, reached out with varying degrees of warmth and skepticism. Some viewed the court's decision with resentment, others cautiously hopeful. My own extended family navigated their roles carefully. Jessica and Michael stood unwaveringly by my side, their support a constant source of strength. The everyday demands of caregiving and law navigation often blurred into exhaustion. Late nights researching legal precedents, mornings coordinating Lily's routine, and afternoons managing therapy appointments created a relentless rhythm. Yet, each challenge reinforced the resilience that had carried me from the moment I found Lily abandoned to this ongoing journey. In April, a hearing to review visitation compliance was scheduled. Susan prepared me meticulously. "We will show the court the reality of John's behavior, his progress and failings. Our goal is to safeguard Lily's well-being, even if that means modifying visitation." The day of the hearing was a test of endurance, emotion, and careful litigation. Witnesses testified to John's erratic attendance and inconsistent parenting effort, while advocates highlighted Lily's need for stability. Lily sat beside me, clutching my hand tightly, her presence a living testament to everything at stake. After hours of deliberations, the judge issued a nuanced ruling, mandating more structured visits, increased therapist involvement, and mandatory parenting classes for John. Though imperfect, it was a step toward safeguarding the fragile balance we maintained. In the quiet aftermath, I reflected often on the paradox of motherhood, how love and battle entwined inseparably. No victory in court could undo the years of fear or uncertainty, but every thoughtful decision, every firm boundary, was part of healing that no law could mandate. The road was neither straight nor easy, and often fraught with doubt. Still, with each passing day, Lily's smile grew broader, her trust deeper. And I, steadfast as ever, remained fiercely devoted to ensuring that the woman who once lay forgotten in a cardboard box found her rightful place, not just in our family, but in a world that had once turned its back on her. This was not merely a legal fight, but a lifelong promise, one of protection, love, and relentless hope. The storm may never fully pass, but we stood ready to face its every roar together. The courthouse in Fulton County was imposing, its tall columns and heavy wooden doors a stark contrast to the turmoil that churned within me. This was the day where years of silent pain, whispered fears, and relentless love would be laid bare for judgment. I was to face John Miller, not just as a man challenging my right to mother Lily, but as an embodiment of a past that refused to stay buried. The halls buzzed with murmurs as I entered the courtroom, Lily's small hand firmly clasped in mine. At 21 months old, she seemed unaware of the storm swirling around her, but I carried the weight of her future on my shoulders. The judge, a woman in her 50s with a keen gaze, called the session to order, signaling the gravity of the moment. Susan Taylor, my unwavering advocate, whispered reassurance. "We have a strong case, Mary. The truth always shines through." The opening statements set the tone. John's attorney spoke eloquently of biological rights, a yearning for connection, and the importance of family bonds. But as the hearing progressed, it became clear that biology alone was a fragile foundation compared to the tangible reality of here and now. I was called to testify first. As I took the stand, memories cascaded vividly. The frozen morning when I found that fragile child, the uncertainty held in her trembling fingers, and the steady years building a life grounded in love. I recounted our struggles, our milestones, and the sacrifices made to ensure Lily's well-being. "Did you ever doubt your ability to care for her?" the attorney challenged, a subtle test. "Not once," I replied firmly. "Love, commitment, and responsibility are the true measures of motherhood." Next came the social worker's testimonies. Amanda Lee described Lily's health, emotional growth, and the seamless care provided by me. Her statements fortified the foundations of our claim, not just of survival, but thriving. Barbara Davis, my longtime neighbor and confidant, shared observations of Lily's joyful attendance at community events, her milestones celebrated surrounded by a network that cherished her. Then came John Miller's testimony. His voice was raw, but conviction faltered beneath scrutiny. He admitted regrets, acknowledged years lost to substance abuse, and expressed a desire to be part of Lily's life. Yet the lack of consistent effort was undeniable. He paused, eyes locking briefly with Lily, voice catching. "I want to be her father, but I understand the mistakes I've made. I'm trying to fix that." The courtroom was heavy with tension as we awaited the closing arguments. Susan's summation was both precise and impassioned. "Your Honor, this case is about protecting a child's best interest. Mary Johnson is the mother Lily knows, trusts, and depends upon. Our duty is to safeguard this life from disruption that could cause irreversible harm. Parenthood is not merely biology, it is sacrifice, love, and unwavering presence." The attorney for John cited the importance of biological connection, but struggled to offset the compelling evidence of inconsistency and an unstable lifestyle. After hours enveloped in testimony, the judge took to deliberation. I sat holding Lily, her little hand squeezing mine, as the seconds stretched interminably. When the judge finally spoke, her voice was measured, carrying the weight of impartial justice and compassion. After careful consideration, this court affirms Mary Elizabeth Johnson as the legal guardian and de facto parent of Lily Grace Miller. The bond formed between them is the foundation of Lily's emotional and physical well-being. The petitioner, John Miller, is granted supervised visitation to foster a relationship under strict guidelines, ensuring the child's stability. The decision was not just legal, it was a profound validation of love's power to define family. As the courtroom cleared, Lily clung to me, her face breaking into a trusting smile. The relief was palpable, yet beneath it lay the knowledge that our journey was ongoing, a lifelong commitment beyond verdicts and paper. In the days following, I navigated the fragile balance of encouraging John's involvement without compromising Lily's safety. Therapy continued, focused on building healthy relationships and managing the emotional complexities of adoption and biological ties. Public record of the hearing sparked quiet conversations within our community. a testament to the strength of maternal devotion beyond genetics. Even in those moments of victory, I hummed the tune of resilience, summoned by what we'd endured and hopeful for what Lily's future would hold. The courtroom ending was not a finale, but a new beginning, a dawn where truth was honored and love earned. With every challenge met and every boundary honored, we walked forward, mother and daughter bound by an unbreakable bond, shaped not by law alone, but by enduring love and courage. The verdict was handed down on a crisp morning in early summer. Outside the Fulton County Courthouse, the sun cast long shadows on the steps, a reminder of time's steady passage and the often harsh trials woven into it. Inside, the heavy gavel had fallen, sealing a legal affirmation that I was, and always had been, the mother to Lily Grace. But beyond the walls of the courtroom, the true work was just beginning. Custody and visitation rulings provide frameworks, but they do not heal the invisible wounds of abandonment, nor erase years of uncertainty. The path ahead was steep and jagged, strewn with emotional testaments and daily challenges that demanded all my strength and patience. In the aftermath, our small home in Decatur became a sanctuary not just for Lily, but for all of us who had endured and hoped. The days hummed with the rhythm of family life. School drop-offs, homework sessions, laughter echoing in sun-warmed rooms, and quiet evenings filled with bedtime stories. Yet there were nights when the shadows crept in, when Lily's eyes reflected questions even she couldn't yet voice, when my own doubts whispered beneath the armor of certainty. Helping her understand her identity became a delicate dance. Love letters etched in conversations, carefully crafted to nurture without overwhelming, to include without confusing. I introduced her gently to the idea that family is complex, layered with history and heart alike. Therapy sessions expanded, involving not just Lily, but all of us, including John Miller, as he honored the court-mandated supervised visits. These visits were tentative bridges, fragile attempts at connection rebuilt over time. Some were hopeful, others fraught with hesitation and misunderstanding. John's journey mirrored his struggles. He sought redemption, grappling with years lost to addiction and absence. Forgiveness was elusive, but the persistent effort, a willingness to be better, offered a sliver of hope for healing fractured bonds. Throughout, I remained vigilant, safeguarding Lily's space and choice while encouraging growth and empathy. Empowerment flowed through everyday acts, teaching her to set boundaries, recognize love's true face, and carve her own future free from the shadows of neglect. Financially, I leveraged my background as a consultant to secure our future. Investments were reviewed and restructured, ensuring stability and independence. Grants and scholarships were sought for Lily's promising education, bridging our modest means with her aspirations. Community became a vital pillar. Friends like Barbara Davis provided wisdom and warmth. School teachers celebrated Lily's achievements. Neighbors embraced her as a radiant young woman breaking free from a fraught story. Birthdays and holidays were transformed into celebrations of resilience and renewal. Each milestone marked not just years past, but victories won over adversity. Sometimes distant relatives reached out, slowly thawing the ice created by years of misunderstanding. The social fabric of family expanded tentatively, woven anew with threads of honesty and forgiveness. Internally, I carried the scars of our journey. Nights spent wrestling with guilt over the wounds we couldn't erase. Mornings waking with gratitude for the life saved and nurtured. I often sat on the porch, watching the amber sun slide beneath the Georgia pines, reflecting on the intertwining of fate and choice. That long-ago winter day, when I found Lily abandoned and alive, had launched me onto a path that transformed us both. We had endured loss, betrayal, and the weight of untold stories. Yet from those depths rose a fierce, enduring love. Justice, as I came to understand, was not a fate handed down solely by courts, but a daily practice of protection and perseverance. I learned to balance firm boundaries with tender compassion, to assert rights while embracing vulnerability. The woman who once rescued a fragile infant had grown into a guardian of hopes and a maker of legacies. And as Lily looked to me, not just with the eyes of a child, but with the emerging wisdom of a young woman, I knew that our story was no longer defined by abandonment, but by the profound strength of chosen family. In her smile, in her laughter, in the cautious trust she placed in my hands, I found my purpose renewed. Love had triumphed over neglect, and I would carry that truth forward, no matter what future storms might come. This was not simply a story of lost beginnings, but of reclaimed futures, a testament to the resilience of the human heart and the unbreakable bond of a mother's love.